Hi, we're Josh
and Ariel Wamsley,
owners of Green Valley Tree LLC, based in North Windham.
We're proud to sponsor Connecticut East This Week and to serve the communities of Windham and New London counties with our tree removal and plant healthcare services.
Visit our website at greenvalleytreeworks.com for a full list of our services or give us a call on 860-234-4041. We look forward to hearing from you.
It's 25 years of Puppies Behind Bars, and we talk to them about their amazing dogs and their prison connection. Plus, we talk to 3 local police departments in Eastern Connecticut who all have a Puppies Behind Bars comfort dog. And we take a look at other stories making the headlines from around the region. This is Connecticut East This Week. Hello, I'm Brian Scott Smith. We are a nation of animal lovers, and for many years now, dogs have not only been our pets growing up and through our adult lives, but they also work with us, guide us if we are blind, and can even find us if we are lost in search and rescue situations. And for one organisation for the last 25 years, they have been training dogs to help us using the skills of prison inmates to make that happen. I caught up recently with Gloria Gilbert Stoger, president and founder of the organisation Puppies Behind Bars, to find out more. Gloria, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
So 25 years of Puppies Behind Bars. One, congratulations. And secondly, how did it all start?
Thank you for the congratulations. It literally does not seem like 25 years at all. It started with my reading an article about a veterinarian in Florida who started the first prison program in the country where inmates were raising guide dogs for the blind. And I thought it was a brilliant idea, researched it, met him. And then 2 years later, still thought it was a brilliant idea and decided I would try my hand at something similar in New York.
Why use inmates? I mean, it's very interesting. Obviously, it works. You've been doing it for 25 years. And like you said, another organization. So what's the rationale with using inmates?
I think initially for that veterinarian, the rationale was that these were people who had time on their hands and could raise a dog successfully. For Puppies Behind Bars, for me, the rationale was when we started in 1997, there was a shortage of guide dogs. There was a need for guide dogs, but I also felt and still feel that people who are incarcerated should have an opportunity to contribute to society if they so choose. And Puppies Behind Bars affords them that opportunity.
And how do they feel about it? Because, knowing that they have to give the dog up, that must be quite wrenching because, I'm an animal owner. I've got a dog and I love her to death. So, I mean, how difficult is it for them?
They love their dogs to death. It is definitely difficult, but a couple of things. One, they know going into it, under no circumstances are they keeping the dog. 2, they are doing it 100% for somebody else, and they know that. So the dog is always, always, always going to go on to another person. 3, they feel that when their dog leaves prison, part of them walks out of that gate with them.
Interestingly, the programs that you have, if I've got this right, you've got 3 types of programs: service dogs for veterans, service dogs for first responders, and explosive detection canine program. Let's start with that one because that one seems very different to the other 2.
It is, and it grew completely out of the aftermath of the terrorist attacks of September 11th. I live in New York, seeing what happened to my city on the 11th of September 2001 shook me, as it did every other New Yorker and every American, to my core. And I resolved to do something to help law enforcement, which flooded the city in that aftermath to keep us safe. And what we, Puppies Behind Bars, could do was help provide explosive detection canines to law enforcement because all of a sudden, explosive detection canines were needed around the world. So there was a need that Puppies filled. And that's exactly how we started with the explosive detection canine program. Our working with veterans grew out of the same need. The United States invaded Iraq and then invaded Afghanistan. All of a sudden, we had Americans coming home with physical and psychological wounds. And Puppies Behind Bars said, what can we do to help this population that's fighting to help our country? And so we stopped raising guide dogs for the blind, and we started raising service dogs exclusively for Iraq and Afghanistan war vets. And then after the mass shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, I just said to myself, my God, those first responders on the scene, I mean, what they must have witnessed in that elementary school, horrible isn't even the right word. Is there anything that puppies can do to help people who do go to the scenes of mass shootings, which are so prevalent in this country? And out of that was born the let's donate and provide service dogs to first responders.
And let's get to that as well. I mean, 3 amazing programs that you do. I mean, how are these dogs paid for?
They're paid for by private funds. Americans are an extremely generous group body of people. And I think people love the idea. I can't tell you how many times people say to me, it's a win-win, that the incarcerated individuals are doing something to earn marketable skills, to contribute to society. The recipients of the dogs get these incredibly well-trained, well-loved dogs free of charge. So I think people respond. I think the public responds to Puppies Behind Bars because they feel that they're getting a double bang for their buck, if you will.
Now, my understanding is that even though, as you just said, these dogs are paid for through generous donations, the dogs, even when they go to like a veteran or a first responder, they still sort of belong to Puppies Behind Bars in a way, because you keep a check on them, don't you? Just talk to us about that, because their well-being is also important to you throughout their life.
In our 25 years, dogs really have always come first. And I'm not saying that humans are not important, but we've kept our eye on our dogs. We retain ownership of our dogs for life in the event that someone can no longer keep one of our dogs, or if someone's lifestyle changes and they're not giving the dog the quality of life that they should be giving the dog, then Puppies will take the dog back and we will find a perfect, loving, forever home for that dog. So our relationship with our dogs is very, very important to us. We take it very seriously, and we do not want to relinquish control over our dogs.
I want to pick up particularly on these service dogs for first responders. I mean, we've heard about veterans obviously having service dogs for a while, but you were mentioning obviously this new niche, as it were, for first responders. A lot of police departments, and I believe that 6 here in Connecticut, have got service dogs. 3 joined fairly recently, and they were all brothers. Tell us a little bit more about that, because it's a very heartwarming story, and also it puts our police in a very different light, doesn't it?
We don't have a great name for it, so we call them department dogs. Our first dog went to a police department in August of 2019. The premise being that a dog in a police department who works with a particular officer can improve community relations between the community and the cop, and can also help provide wellness to officers who are feeling stressed. It's not a secret that being a cop in America today is not, it's never an easy job, but it's even tougher right now. And relations between the public and police are at a pretty low point. So if a cop is walking down the street with a beautiful, friendly, outgoing, incredibly well-trained Labrador by his or her side, that police officer certainly is going to be more approachable. All of a sudden, you can go up to the cop and say, why do you have that Labrador? Why do you have that dog? Or I've got a dog at home that looks just like that dog. It opens communication between the public and police officers. And then some of our police departments use the dogs primarily for officer wellness, which is the dogs go to the police department and they're there. And if an officer is feeling stressed, is feeling suicidal, they can talk to the dog, or they can talk to a peer support counselor with a dog present. And it's easier for somebody lots of times to open up to a dog than it is to open up to a human.
You're very much obviously hands-on as part of the training of these beautiful animals. Just want to ask you this question. Obviously, when it comes to police officers and police departments that have these dogs, they have to come meet the dog and they go through training. Do they actually enter the prison system as well for a short period of time, to meet and greet the dog? How does that work?
They do. And for me, it's one of the most rewarding aspects of our work. Because of COVID, our training is 14 days long, COVID or no COVID. Because of COVID, there was a period where our trainings had to be remote, but the incarcerated individuals were the ones via video teaching the police officers directly. And pre-COVID, and once when there was a break in COVID, we do go into prisons. So you've got active duty cops going into maximum and medium security prisons in New York State, training directly with incarcerated individuals, taking instruction from incarcerated individuals, learning from incarcerated individuals. And why that aspect is the most favorite part of my work, as I said, is because both sides see each other not as monolithic groups, but they see each other as individuals, and they find common ground with each other. And it's just something that everybody benefits. If there's an incarcerated individual who, by definition, was arrested by a police officer, a law enforcement agent, if you've got an incarcerated individual who says, wow, that cop is actually a human being, that cop is actually really likable, and says that in phone calls home to their families. And conversely, if you've got a cop saying, wow, that incarcerated individual has spent 2 years training this dog, is giving this dog up to me, has spent 14 days training me, they see each other in different lights. And the cop also then calls home at night to the family and says, you wouldn't believe it, but I just spent the day in prison and it was extraordinary. So it's breaking down of barriers, and that's a lot of what Puppies does. And I just love that aspect of it.
These are amazing stories and an amazing organization. Gloria, Gilbert, Stoger, president and founder of Puppies Behind Bars. We wish you many, many more years of success, and thank you for joining us on Connecticut East this week.
Thank you for having me.
So that's Gloria's story, but what about the police officers who have these amazing dogs? In Connecticut, many police departments are taking up the opportunity to have a service dog, and here in Eastern Connecticut, we have 3. Joining me to talk more about them is Officer Heather McClelland from Town of Groton Police, Officer Eric Fredericks from Waterford Police, and Officer Craig Shield from Colchester Police. To all 3 of you, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Brian.
So all 3 of you have service comfort dogs. Heather, I wanted to talk to you first because out of the 3 police departments, you had the service dog first. How did it come about?
Well, I actually met Gloria, Gilbert, Stoger a few years ago at a symposium at New York City Police Department on suicide awareness and prevention for police officers. It was kind of a big topic that year. And she happened to have a couple of the dogs with her from Puppies Behind Bars. And, I started talking to her and said, hey, I'm kind of in charge of the officer wellness program at my police department. And, I don't have PTSD myself. I don't need a dog for my own personal use, but I think that having one of your dogs would be fantastic for our police department, our first responders, and the rest of our town. And she was on board. So that was great.
Just explain to us a little bit more, because we want to get this across that the dogs are not your typical police dogs. They are there for, as you said, officer wellness. They're also there as part of community outreach. How important are both of those things?
They're huge. I mean, I think a well cop, a happy cop lends itself well to good community interactions and, being out there and representing our police departments well. So, the police officers that we work with, after time, we see a lot of things. We experience a lot of trauma throughout our careers, and, having something as simple as a dog who can come in and just provide a little bit of relief for the folks that we work with. I think it goes a long way in making sure that we're well and making sure that, our community is treated well as well as that.
I want to turn to Eric now. And of course, Waterford PD isn't too far away from Town of Groton. Eric, you've had Hodges, your service comfort dog, now for a little over a month. Heather was sort of very much part of why Waterford decided to get Hodges. Explain that to us, and how has Hodges also gone down with the force and obviously the community?
Yeah, Heather was definitely instrumental
in us getting a dog. What happened is our administration attended an event that Heather and some of the other handlers ran, and we've learned about the program, and our department has always been big into community engagement. So we thought this was just another resource for community building and of course officer wellness as well. But along the lines with Hodges, it's been going great. Hodges is definitely coming out of his shell more with the officers walking around, greeting officers, going to their desks. When I lose sight of Hodges, I always find him at under a different officer's desk, like getting belly rubs. So he's definitely coming out of his shell. He's definitely doing his service as an officer wellness dog. And then we've done numerous visits to senior centers, to pre-K events where he's interacted with people of all ages and even some victims. And he's definitely, done his role greatly, helping people deal with stress.
And Craig, I want to turn to you, obviously up there in the Colchester area of Eastern Connecticut. You have Skipper, which is actually one of two brothers. The other one, of course, is Hodges, who we've just spoken to Eric about. And then we've got Jules, who is a comfort service dog down in Southern Connecticut State University. Tell us a little bit about, obviously, Skipper, because Skipper goes to schools quite a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, so our program is a little bit unique. I'm currently assigned to the school resource officer position within our police department. So I cover 4 schools from K through 12. And so Skipper comes with me to school every day. And, our enrollment is around 700 students just at the high school. He gets to interact with lots of young people every day, everything from friendly visits to comforting a student that's having a crisis situation. So he's been warmly welcomed by all the students and faculty, and he's definitely a star.
And how's it been for you as well? Because each of you, just so that people are fully understanding of the situation, these dogs go home with you, they live with you, they are your partners as well. They are actual police officers. So Craig, for you, how's it been having this great partner become part of your life?
It's been amazing. I'm married and I have 2 kids, and we have another personal dog that we had before Skipper, and he's been welcomed by everybody, and my children love him, and my wife bonded to him extremely quickly. So it's always funny now when I get home from work, and if everybody's home in the house, I don't only hear the greetings for Daddy, but I hear the greetings for Skipper, and he appreciates that just as much as I do.
The other thing I wanted to ask all 3 of you as well, obviously all active serving police officers in our communities, for which obviously we're eternally grateful to all 3 of you. When you went as part of the training for each of these dogs, of course, it's an organization called Puppies Behind Bars, and they are trained by inmates. What was it like for each of you actually stepping into the prison environment, as it were, because I'm guessing that was a little bit different for each of you, was it?
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience. I wasn't sure what to expect at first. I went into Bedford Hills, the female prison, the women's prison in New York, and I actually got to work with the puppy raiser that raised my dog. And so, I think that while I tried to go in there with an open mind, you still have some ideas of how you might feel about folks who are behind bars. But I think what I found was that, everybody's got their story. Everybody's got different things in their lives that have brought them to where they are. And it was really interesting to get to know some of the women that were there, how they got there. So, for me, it was a really eye-opening experience. And I think I was able to bring back a little bit more understanding to, how I deal with people in my job now, knowing kind of the full circle of how things go after we arrest people.
And Craig, what about you?
Well, we were Eric and I were in the same team training, and it was a little bit different for us because of COVID precautions. Our training was virtual. So we were with Puppies Behind Bars staff, but we had to have a virtual training with the incarcerated individuals every day. So we didn't have that in-person, face-to-face contact that Heather was able to have. However, we did have class every day, Monday through Friday, with those individuals who led the trainings. And I'll say I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but everybody was, very enthusiastic and dedicated to the dogs and very professional. And we were able to take that, very professional demeanor that we had on day 1. And by the end of the 2 weeks, there was jokes, there was, personal interaction, and those dogs became a bridge between the police officers in our training and the incarcerated individuals. And that's exactly what they're designed to do.
And Eric, I want to turn to you now, a slightly different question. All of the dogs, I understand, have social media accounts, and you all seem very active on them. Was that a requirement from Puppies Behind Bars? And also, because they have, this instant attraction to people, do people see the dog before they see you?
The social media was never a requirement from Puppies Behind Bars. I know myself and Craig and Jules's handler, we kind of went on the coattails of Heather because she's doing so great with it. So it's just another resource to get the word out of what these dogs are about. And, just interacting with the public, people already know him by his Instagram page. So it definitely is a helpful tool. And yeah, you're completely right. When I take him out in public, people sometimes don't even say hi to me. I just went to a coffee with a vet event before this interview, and everyone's saying hi to Hodges, greeting him, petting him like he's supposed to be doing. And then I would say like 10 minutes later, they're like, oh, hi, Officer Fredericks, things like that. But I'm definitely used to it, just like all the other handlers. We're pretty much these dog chauffeurs. So it's a great experience.
Well, it's been great talking to all three of you, and it is an amazing organization. It's also great that each of your police departments have taken up these dogs, and that they're doing great things, not only for community outreach, but most importantly as well for officer wellness. And we look forward to continuing to follow the stories of Hodges at Waterford, Chase at Town of Groton with Heather there, and also Skipper, obviously, with Craig. But to all of you, thank you for your continued service to the community. And obviously, thank you to the three dogs as well, and for being on Connecticut East this week.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
And if you want to find out more about the Puppies Behind Bars organization and the work they do, then visit their website at puppiesbehindbars.com.
The American Red Cross blood supply is at historically low levels this winter, and we're facing a dangerous situation across the country. Without the blood they need, hospitals may be forced to make tough decisions about patient care. Donors are needed now to ensure blood is available for everyone who needs it when they need it. The good news is, you can help. Make an appointment to give now. Visit redcrossblood.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS. Patients are counting on you.
Tree damage caused by high winds, hurricanes, or stormy weather, Green Valley Tree has you covered. We offer emergency storm service for residential, commercial, and even municipalities. From full removals, uprooted or broken trees, to broken and fractured limbs, no job too big or small. If you need immediate emergency service outside our regular business hours, call our emergency hotline at 860-966-5710 and visit our website at greenvalleytreeworks.com for details of our other services.
Time now for a look at some of the other stories making the headlines in the region recently. As Connecticut considers legalizing medical aid in dying for people with terminal illnesses, a new poll reveals voters are more likely to back candidates who support this option. Emily Scott from the Connecticut News Service has more.
66% of voters in northeastern states said they would want the option of medical aid in dying if they were diagnosed with a terminal illness and of sound mind to make this decision. State Representative Jonathan Steinberg, who co-chairs the Public Health Committee, says it speaks to changing public sentiment on medical aid in dying.
It's clear that the majority of Connecticut citizens understand it and understand its limited applicability. None of them probably hope that they ever have to avail themselves of it if they want to have the choice.
In Connecticut, Senate Bill 88 was introduced this month and had a public hearing last week. Opponents say these laws violate the obligation of physicians to do no harm to patients. But about a dozen states have introduced similar legislation this year. I'm Emily Scott.
Stone artifacts that date back 12,000 years have been found at a rare Paleo-Indian site in East Haddam. The site, which is on the grounds of the Two Razzling Cats coffee house and cafe, has so far unearthed over 500 items. Sarah Sportman is the Connecticut State archaeologist and part of the team that's exploring the new site.
We know that people in this time period were very mobile, that they lived a hunting-gathering lifestyle, that they moved around the landscape a lot and traveled great distances. They didn't often stay in one place for very long, so to find one of these sites where people camped, for a short period of time, 11 or 12,000 years ago, is really remarkable when you think about it.
Sportman says it's rare to find sites like these, as often they have been dug up over the years during large construction projects or eroded over time and washed away by storms. David Leslie is an archaeologist and part of the team exploring the new site and says they know its Paleo-Indian origin because of the types of stone arrowheads they've been finding.
And so we found 21 fragments of these concentrated in one area of the site, indicating that between 11 and 13,000 years ago, this was an area where people sat down and made several spear points out of a few different types of raw material too. So some of this raw material looks like it's coming from New York. Some of it is here locally in Connecticut as well. So that was a little bit surprising.
Leslie says Paleo-Indians were nomadic, traveling frequently for hundreds of miles, and were known to use the best materials for creating their tools and weapons they found during their travels. In the Connecticut Examiner this week, they have more than 50 state-certified police officers between them, as well as a fleet of cruisers, holding cells for suspects, a firearms training range, and an automated fingerprinting system. But what police at the sovereign nation reservations of the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation and its neighboring Mohegan tribe don't have is the power to issue pistol permits to their residents, as is granted to every municipal department in the state. A proposed bill before the General Assembly would change that and was the subject of a public hearing recently before the legislator's Public Safety and Security Committee. The proposed bill would eventually be put to a vote of the Public Safety Committee whether to send it to the House and Senate for debate and possible approval. In the day this week, Stonington Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously recently to implement a 6-month moratorium on accepting applications to open cannabis businesses in town. The moratorium is designed to give the Commission and its staff time to research, develop and implement specific zoning regulations for cannabis retailers and producers. Stonington joins other communities in Connecticut that already have adopted moratoriums to give them time to draft regulations. According to the state law that legalized the recreational use of marijuana and took effect July 1st last year, municipalities had the discretion to allow or prohibit cannabis businesses within their borders, regulate signs and operating hours, and develop specific regulations for such businesses. In the Norwich Bulletin this week, back when producer and writer Thomas Mercer started making his recently released movie, The Wider Legacy of Norwich-born Benedict Arnold, was that he abandoned the colonist side in the American Revolution after being a successful general for the British. The movie, Benedict Arnold, Hero Betrayed, was released in November after being in production for 20 years. Mercer said the film aims for a more nuanced understanding of who Arnold was and what he means to Americans today. The team who worked on the movie say, however, they're also concerned with earning back the money spent on the film, as the film was only worked on when the money was available, and being independent filmmakers getting money as a non-profit rather than securing funding ahead of time, which explains the long production time. In the Middletown Press this week, new Connecticut housing permits approved in January were the most since January 2014. That's according to data released by the State Department of Economic and Community Development. The 454 new housing units approved in January were more than double the amount approved in January of 2021. New Haven led the 118 communities reporting in January, with 132 units approved. Middlebury officials approved 30 new housing units, and there were 18 permits issued in Shelton. New housing permits are considered a key economic indicator because moving into a new house or apartment is usually accompanied by purchases of so-called big-ticket items like consumer electronics and appliances. And in the Chronicle this week, the Russians' brutal invasion of democratic Ukraine has caused emotional reactions of condemnation and worry worldwide, including within the halls of academia. Local university professors and academics at the University of Connecticut and Eastern Connecticut State University said they are concerned about the well-being of Ukrainian citizens who are being killed in the fighting. UConn doctoral candidate Vladimir Gupan hails from Ukraine and teaches the issues the country faces in his political science course at the UConn Hartford campus. "We are fighting back," he said. "We are showing the world that Russia cannot defeat us." That's all from us for this edition. Do send us your questions and story ideas to the show via our website at connecticut-east.com or Facebook or Twitter at Connecticut East and on Instagram at Connecticut East this week. And you can listen to the show again on our social platforms on demand and by asking your smart speaker to play Connecticut East This Week podcast. And please like, follow and share on your social media too. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Thank you for listening.